Alright, today I want to talk about something that's army related but not exclusively army. So it's this idea of the chain of command. And I think, if you're in the army, you hear this quite often lah. And just to briefly outline what the chain of command is. The chain of command is essentially a chain of people that you have to speak to in terms of your boss, let's say, right? So you receive information from somebody and that person receives information from another person and so on and so forth until you reach like the chairman or something, and the lowest form is probably the worker or something like that, right? I mean this exists in organizations, it exists anywhere that you need to get things done, right? So it can work for an organization where you have the CEO and then it goes all the way down, or it could be for an event, let's say a large scale event that you require many people and there are many moving parts. Then you would have somebody at the top making all the executive decisions for the event, and then the people below who are the ground people who sort of work on, do the dirty work essentially, right? So that's what the chain of command is. It's a hierarchy of people. Think of it like a pyramid. So there are more people doing the groundwork at the bottom than the people making executive decisions, and logically so, because you can't have too many people making the executive decisions and you need more hands on deck. So that's essentially what the chain of command is. And for obvious reasons, this chain of command exists. So, and this would be the pros of the chain of command, which is essentially the first thing, the proper flow of information. So information has to go down the proper channels, because you don't want to have the leader talking to every single person individually, right? You want the leader talking to two ICs who will then disseminate the information down and down and down until it trickles down to everybody, right? And that's proper flow of information. Likewise, you don't want to have information that goes upwards straight to the executive director from so many people at the bottom. You don't really want to overload the head essentially, right? So so that he's not full of different opinions and whatever, and instead maybe at most it's only two people answering directly to him in terms of what's going on. So you have this flow of information downwards and upwards in an orderly manner, which is a very, very good reason why the chain of command exists. And then I guess for delegation as well, where work can be delegated more efficiently, where the IC doesn't have to give instructions to every single person, and instead the work can be delegated to two people who will then delegate to more people and things like that. Right, so and the chain of command doesn't work in all scenarios. It works most ideally when, first of all, you have competent leaders that know what they're doing and make good decisions, let's say in an event wise, right? And just saying, a lot of this reflection stuff has to do with the fact that I'm working in part of NDP and I'm like somewhere in the middle, so I see the top and I see the bottom as well, and I have some reflections on it. Anyway, just to get back to that, so you need competent leaders, and the second thing you need is obedient followers. You need people who execute the plan according to what they've been ordered, right? So good leaders, good workers. Leaders give the instructions, pass it down to the workers, they follow it, and the plan is executed well, right? Now, it's not a foolproof thing, because the chain of command does have its cons, and I'm here to outline it to you. Because, of course, it's not a perfect world, so there are not so competent leaders and there are not so competent workers. Let me explain to you how problems arise from the chain of command because of this. So the first thing is that from the chain of command, the people below don't get to see the reasons for certain decisions. In the sense that when an order comes down for you to do something, you don't know why you're doing it, right? You can't see the reasons above. You just know, I need to do this and I have to do it now or do it at a certain time, right? So the people below are kind of kept in the dark as to what's happening, right? Of course, if all is well, then nobody's going to complain, right? If everything's going fine. But the problem comes when sometimes it doesn't go well, and then it affects you, maybe personally in terms of welfare. In the army context, you have to wait very long, right? And waiting it's annoying, right? It doesn't hurt, but it's annoying, and people get frustrated when they have to wait very long, and then they complain. So if things don't go well, and you are kept in the dark, the first response is to shit on the leadership, essentially. To say, what are they doing? Why are they causing me to suffer like this? Either to wait for very long, or to I mean, if it causes me my time or my energy or my money, waste my time, waste my energy, these kind of things, then then there will be some sort of resentment and uprising and doubt of the leadership that builds up at the bottom. And this is one of the cons of the chain of commands, that you don't get to see the reason, right? And I'm sure that 99% of the people, if you were to explain to them why they have to wait so long, they will understand. But the problem is sometimes the people on top don't owe you an explanation as to why they're waiting, right? They don't have to explain themselves to you. But as a result, it means you will complain lah. You won't understand, and then you'll get angry. Yeah, so that's the thing. The second problem is that it's true that the leadership doesn't have a good view of ground level happenings, as in the leadership does not know what's happening on one-to-one level at the ground level. So let's say that I'm doing some work as a worker, and I get injured, for example, right? The upper leadership's not going to know, and they could make a decision that would make my life worse. And that's one of the flaws of chain of command, is that maybe getting injured is still a relatively large example that should get reported up. But for small things that don't get reported up, the leadership doesn't know, and so they will make bad decisions based on poor information, right? So poor information top down, poor information down up. And then all of this just builds into more and more anger and resentment and bitterness. And then finally, the largest problem is that it breaks one of the core pillars for a chain of command to work, which is obedient workers. So what resentment leads to is rebels and rogues. So rebels and rogues are workers that don't listen to the instructions and decide to act according to their own will, right? And what happens is this creates inefficiencies within the chain of command, because information goes top down, instructions goes from top to down, and it doesn't get executed. So that's what happens when there are issues lah. This is one of the major cons of the chain of command, and you see this in most organizations where there is a very difficult task to make, and maybe the leadership makes one or two errors that cause a huge cascade of problems down. Nobody's perfect, and nobody does things with 100% accuracy, but the greater the mistake, the greater this cycle of the fatal flaw of the chain of command takes place. Anyway, just to highlight to you what this dilemma actually is the dilemma between subjugation and autonomy. Now, subjugation is essentially having subjects, right? Having a group of people that you instruct directly, and they listen to everything that you say without question. Autonomy is sort of a laissez-faire kind of leadership, where you let the people run their own show and do as they deem fit. Right? So these are the two styles of leadership that are at play here. Of course, the subjugation, the chain of command works as a balance of the two, but we'll get back to that. So let's talk about subjugation. So on one hand, subjugation creates order, as in it's orderly because the moment you say something gets done without question and efficiently, right? The only problem with subjugation is that it limits adaptation, right? It limits problem solving at the smaller ground level, right? And this creates inefficiencies for the leader, because now the leader has to micromanage. Leader has to solve every problem that arises. Whereas if you had more autonomous people, then they could make their own decision as to how to correct the SOP where it's SOP as in standard operating procedure, where it's inefficient, right? So autonomy, on the other hand, is complete freedom to do whatever. Now, this allows for great adaptation. If the people you are leading have good decision making, then great. But it creates chaos at the same time, disorder, because if subjugation creates order, then autonomy creates disorder, right? It could cause confusion, conflict of interest, things like that. And it also allows for rebels, because if rebels exist in an autonomous working style, then people could just go rogue and do something else in their own time and not fulfill the objective of the mission, essentially. Yeah, so with the chain of command, a balance must be struck, and I'm concluding here to say that it's not one system or the other, and I think it's quite self-explanatory. By the way, this video is not to, I don't know, give you any answers. It's more of to highlight the reason why sometimes it may feel very frustrating to work in a large-scale organization, NDB, and to maybe have some empathy for the flaws of the system and be more understanding. Yeah, so a balance must be struck. In a proper chain of command, you need to have people who are willing and obedient to the cause, to the instructions given by the leaders, but at the same time have the right discretion for how much they can deviate from the instructions and know that their objective is still the same as the leaders and act according to their will from there. Yeah, and I think in a utopian society, that would be the best way for the chain of command to work. And maybe next time, if you're a boss, or if you're a boss and you have the chance to talk to the workers below, that's what you want to tell them, right? You want to tell them that, look, nobody's perfect. I may make bad decisions sometimes, but I need your cooperation. Sometimes if you can't see the fruits of your labor, or you don't understand why you are suffering slightly, have faith in me, and if you need to, go right ahead and do whatever you think is best for the company, for the organization, for the event, for the cause that we are fighting for. And that, I think, is the best way to go about with the chain of command. That is all, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!